Welcome to Battleground. Today is Thursday, Halloween. We are 5 days away from the election, from kicking ass because Donald Trump is going to do a clean sweep, and we're going to send wokeness to the trash bins of history, like the nutcase over on the left, Brennan used to say. Today we have a special guest, awesome guy, super trajectory, business guy, CEO, played in the intel world, whistleblower, Patrick Byrne. He's the author of two great books, actually, that I consumed. I didn't read. I listened to them on Audible. You should do it as well. The Deep Rig and Danger Close. And if you haven't done so already, his docuseries, The Enemy Within, on Rumble, you have to watch it. You have to watch it. It is very telling. And, well, let's bring Patrick on. Patrick, welcome to IGH Going Rogue.
It's a welcome to be going rogue with you, Ivan.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. You know the rules, right? Truth bombs, F-bombs, no bullshit, so let's fucking go.
I'm your fucking guy.
All right. So, man, I was reading listening to your books, just fascinating stuff. You're like the, I guess like a real life James Bond or something, right? Business executive, CEO, took on Wall Street, has taken on the deep state, played in the intel. You caught all this bogus stuff that was going on in 2020. Where do you want to start?
Well, I try not to compare myself to that. I've not really been. I'm not a spy. My whole point was I was never really a spy. I was lucky and honored on numerous occasions in my life, either to be counted on for some kind of academic contribution where I'd be invited to come sort of talk and about different of my thoughts. And on rare occasions, I've had an opportunity to contribute to some issue regarding peace here and there. So that's really been my life. I've never really been a spy, but it was in the context of that I got dragged into the events that became known as the Clinton investigation and the Russia investigation. And I really have the inside knowledge on all of that. So I've decided to since we're about on the edge of losing our country, it's now or never. So I've come clean about a bunch of stuff, and it's in a movie called Enemy Within. You can find it on Rumble or enemywithindocuseries.com. $5, 3 episodes, and you're going to love it. It's really pretty good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The trailer is something else. Why don't you put on the trailer so everybody can watch?
Please.
Here we go.
My name is Patrick Byrne, domestic extremist threat number 1. Or not. Perhaps I'm just somebody who's willing to say the emperor has no clothes. You can decide for yourself.
Patrick Byrne.
They're following everything that you've been working on.
Yes, sir. Understood.
You may know of me as the CEO of this $2 billion e-commerce company, but really, I have this other life.
You have an unusual relationship with the United States government?
Sir, why are you bringing this up?
The FBI needed me to set up a bribe.
We can't have agents running around creating crimes.
It would violate too many rules for us to do it, but if you're willing to go do it, we'll look the other way.
Hello, my name is Maria Putina.
Then I would make it happen. Instead of being happy, they say,
just let it play, all right?
What?
Let it play?
Now, I know this may look like the Deep Throat scene from All the President's Men, but where do you think that stuff comes from? These things happen.
What you think you know.
I was encouraged to have a relationship.
What you think you are.
And it's heated up.
I'm going to meet the Trumps.
I was starting to realize the feds were using Maria to smudge up the Republican Party. And they were using me to use Maria. And this truth is going to be so explosive.
Erase every moment from your memory.
If you do this long enough, you begin to feel like an enemy of your own country.
They're going to arrest this Russian grad student so they could say, no, there is an actual Russian at the center of our Russian collusion drama. A civilization all begins with the rule of law. And once that gets corrupted, it's like my worst fears had just been realized.
That was awesome.
I'm just being sensitive.
That was great. That was great.
That dialogue's right out of reality. A lot of their dialogue in that scene is straight reality. I did not make the movie. General Flynn made the movie, but I'd written reports of different scenes. So he made the movie, and with a wonderful director, Matt Thayer, and his wife, Joy. And so it's kind of funny watching it because that's a reenactment of a great many things that actually happened.
I can imagine. I can imagine. It's you know what? As soon as I saw the trailer, I was like, "Holy shit! I need to watch this." Right? I need to watch this like right now. You know, and you know, didn't have time to, so I will right after this. But the books are fascinating too. They need to. Everybody needs to read those books or listen to them on Audible. So how does a guy like you from Bethesda, Maryland, playing football and wrestling at Whitman, selling Christmas trees on MacArthur Boulevard, end up here? Walk us through and don't leave anything out, please. It is too fascinating. I wish I could condense the two books into this show.
Some scripts read better than they play. It sounds like a lot of fun in retrospect. It wasn't always this much fun. But yes, I moved down to Bethesda when I was a teenager. I went to Pyle. I went to Whitman.
Oh, my God, Pyle.
Did Dartmouth College. Did a year over in China when they first opened up to foreign students. I came back, graduated college at Dartmouth, had cancer immediately, just as I graduated. Really spent the next ages 22 to 25.
Yeah, I read that.
Cancer, and 3 times, and because first treated in Georgetown. And because of that, I ended up going out to Stanford and I couldn't really have held a normal job. I was on chemotherapy. So I went up to Stanford and I did a PhD started off in mathematical logic, but ended up in philosophy and economics. And so that was really the trajectory but all along the way, since my teenage years, I was doing these entrepreneurial things. There on MacArthur Boulevard, I started in high school, a little Christmas tree. Every year we'd sell 500 trees. I'd make about $8,000 in 3 weeks. I thought I discovered the wheel. And it was a great little high school business. But I moved on to other entrepreneurial things. I worked for Buffett for a number of years. I ran a number of his companies. I worked for him for 2 years. Worked on Wall Street for 1 year at his direction. He said, don't stay longer than a year. And then I went through a series of companies that I either started or bought and turned around, leading up to founding Overstock. And I did that for 20 years, which is long enough to run any company.
And a great company, by the way. Great company. Yep.
It's, well, along the way, what people didn't know, so besides my academic career and my business entrepreneurial career, and I was actually named Entrepreneur of the Year back in 2011, National Entrepreneur of the Year. But what people didn't know, that it was my honor from time to time, Uncle Sam, maybe because of some oddities in my background, would reach out and give me an opportunity to contribute to the cause of peace. And there were a number of examples I describe in the book where it doesn't work for them to do it as government. As a guy said to me once at the National Security Council, because they were asking me to do something, I said, "This is odd. Why do you guys ask me to do this? You must have people." And he said, "Patrick, in this world, sometimes before certain kinds of people talk, other kinds of people need to talk. You're that other kind of person." So that was kind of never had a family, never got married or had children. But what I did outside of work and the career that everybody saw was I did that other stuff, trying to nudge the cause of peace forward in the world, really.
That's fantastic. And, consuming your books and the trailer and everything, I can go all over the place here, but, since we're pressed for time, 2020, if you want to go, well, actually, why don't we go back to Maria, to your relationship you had with the Russian lady and that whole situation, how it leads into the whole Russian hoax and everything that we know happened today, right? And I want to ask you a question that you don't have to answer right now or ever if you don't want, but it's all involved in all that is, how does the Office of Net Assessment play into all this? So let's go.
Interesting question. Well, I think of the story as having 4 chapters. And chapter 1 is, yes, I bumped into Maria Butina.
Yep.
There's a famous video of her standing up in a Vegas conference asking Donald Trump a question. Trump closed that conference. I actually opened it. I'm a Bitcoin, known for Bitcoin and libertarian politics. I opened it. And Maria sought me out afterwards. I reported her. Normally, if I report a foreigner, that it gets a good deal of attention, and I have to do it because I kept a security clearance for years. But when I report that something's odd about some foreigner, there's normally quite a bit of attention. In this case, they went out of their way to sort of both not to act disinterested, but to tell me, yeah, go ahead, get to know her better. That she was living with a Republican guy in D.C. She and I started having an affair on the side. It's easier. Anyway, that's just what started to happen.
Yep.
And I was intrigued with her. Very, extraordinary young woman, very intelligent. I thought that she actually represented a possibility of. She had all these back channels to the Kremlin. I thought this might be a good opportunity. On the other hand, I started noticing how our Uncle Sam seemed to be deliberately letting her smudge up the Republican Party. And I was reporting what she was doing. And normally she was doing things that would cause a lot of intense focus from the feds, and they would interrupt and not let a foreign, especially a Russian girl, be doing what she was doing. They just let it play and told me to let it play. It was quite odd. And I figured out really by November 2015 or December 2015 that what they were doing was they were creating a scandal on the Republicans, a Russian scandal. And that now the official story is the Russian investigation started in July of 2016. That's a flat lie. They were aware of her in July of 2015, and they were using me to use her. So they had me open doors for her into the Republican Party. They had me take her to go meet Christopher Christie. Chris Christie. They then used that to get a warrant on him, the fact that he had met this Russian girl. Well, they told me to bring her and get her in the room with them. The whole Russian thing was being fabricated, was engineered. I say in the book, I call it's producer driven, like the Spice Girls was producer driven.
That's amazing.
And that leads to chapter number 2, unless you want to ask me questions about the Russia hoax.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And because in the book you mentioned some of the characters, right? The people that when you uncover who was pulling the strings, who were your handlers, right? And you realize, wait a minute, you go in there and it's Peter Strzok and, the deputy director and the director and all this stuff, during your meetings with, Senator Hatch and Ratcliffe. And there's so much there to tell.
Yeah. And it's a short book. It's 186 pages. I kept it as light as I could. I knew my chain of command was reporting to Comey and Brennan directly. And they told me that. And they were going back and reporting to Comey and Brennan on video conference after each of my meetings, debriefing from the Maria, another girl, my friend.
Hey, it gets confusing sometimes, right?
From the Maria escapades, and I knew that they were reporting directly to Comey and Brennan. Then the day came, they asked me, this is chapter 2, they asked me to bribe Hillary. They asked me to set up a bribe.
And that was an interesting story, by the way, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay. Well, this moves us into chapter 2. They had me, they taught me about stings and the legal theory of stings and how somebody has to demonstrate a prior predisposition to do something, and then so it's not entrapment, and blah, blah, blah. So they taught me all this, and they told me that James Comey had signed off on setting Hillary Clinton up in a bribery sting. And there was another country who wanted to bribe her, and my assignment was to find the bag man in this other country, get him to the U.S., get him in a room with Hillary Clinton, and let him bribe her. The country was Azerbaijan, and I did, in fact, succeed 7 weeks later. On January 14th, 2016, Hillary Clinton stood in a room in Washington, D.C., alone with the bagman from Azerbaijan and accepted a bribe. I can even tell you how she did it, so it was kept off her schedule. Should I walk you through it? It was pretty clever. She was like on the 8th floor of her hotel. Her assistant was on the 5th. She had a limousine at 9 a.m. At 8:30 a.m., the bagman was brought in, went up to the 5th floor, and went in the assistant's room. At 8:47, Hillary stepped out of her room and took an elevator like she was going down to the ground floor to get in her limo. She says, "Oh, I'm gonna hop off on the 5th floor and see my assistant." She goes in and sees her assistant. The assistant steps out of the room, and Hillary was in there alone with a bag man for 10 minutes. Then she came out, went down, was in her limo by 9:02. So it's not on any schedule, but it happened the morning of January 14th, 2016, and she accepted an $18 million bribe from Azerbaijan.
Wow.
Now, the oddest thing, though, if Chapter 2 is not just that. The oddest thing is what happened next. And what happened next was I was told to keep silent, and I was told to forget it. A few days later, the FBI told me that you have to forget this happened, and we've reanalyzed the situation. We realized Hillary was going to be president, and nothing can stop that now, Patrick. And so now this was 10 months before the election.
Yeah.
And she becomes president. First thing she's going to do is send her goons into the FBI and destroy all of us, including you, Patrick. So forget it. It didn't really sit well with me. So a few weeks later, I sat with them again the first third of February 2016, and I let them know that this wasn't sitting right. It didn't make any sense. And they finally told me, I was finally told in the presence of 3 federal officers, what's really going on, Patrick, is this. At this point, and this is word for word, so this is the first third of February 2016. At this point, Patrick, President Obama has his people across the federal bureaucracy, but especially the Department of Justice. Hillary is going to be president and for 8 years. And while she's president, think of there as being a Bunsen burner at the heart of the DOJ. If Hillary is and the hand on the Bunsen burner will be one of Barack Obama's people. If Hillary is a good girl, that flame stays low. If she's not a good girl, if she thinks for herself, doesn't defend Obamacare and stuff, that flame gets turned up. That way, Barack Obama is going to manage Hillary Clinton for 8 years. Then she steps down and Michelle's going to run. And Patrick, that's the plan. I was later told that this plan was called Operation Snow Globe. Wow. That Brennan and Comey and Obama wanted Hillary in a snow globe that they could own for 8 years and rattle her cage or her snow globe. My bribe was the bait to lure her to step into her snow globe.
That's amazing.
That's Chapter 2, and that all happened.
That's crazy. And in somewhere in your book, you talk about you were told that they have made so many billionaires around the world, and if you behaved, you would be one of them as well.
Yes, that came a couple years later. What I was told at that point, though, in that meeting, one of these federal agents leaned in and said, "So, Patrick, when we say you have to forget every moment of this," first, when they gave me the assignment, I asked, I'm compressing 2 meetings in this story, but when I asked who's behind, does this have a Comey sign off? And 2 federal agents leaned in and said,
yeah, they're listening. Yeah.
And I said, Comey and the president? And 2 federal agents said, and I said, well, you tell Director Comey and President Obama that from them is good enough for me, consider Hillary bribed. And it happened. But later, so that was Thanksgiving 2015. It was accomplished by mid-January. In early February 2016, they told me this thing about that, what was going to happen, and that Barack Obama was going to own her. They told me, and they closed this way. So, Patrick, when we tell you that you have to erase, I'm sorry, there's a housekeeper. I'm sorry, no need, no thank you. Good evening. They said, Patrick, so when we tell you that you have to erase every moment of this from that memory of yours, we mean it's a matter of life and death. And I said, and that was that. He didn't quite say death. He said it's a matter of life and death.
Wow. That is fascinating.
That's it. That's Chapter 2. You want to talk about that, or you want to hear Chapter 3?
Yeah. I mean, let's go. I mean, tell your story. Let's go. I mean, this is fascinating for everybody.
Well, first, you want to drill in. What do you want to ask me about Chapter 2? So I set up the Russian hoax.
So yeah. So we know. So we knew. I think at this point, everybody knows that the Russian hoax was complete hoax, fabrication, made up. You're telling a story how it started. You know, you're a critical component of it, actually. you know? And so so the intention of the bribe to Hillary, because that was something that, you know, resonated a lot. That was so they could own her. That was so Barack Obama could have, you know, hold pictures on her, in essence, right? So what happened afterwards? She loses. What happens to that money? What happens? The FBI just forgets it ever happened? Nobody's gone back? Nobody's done anything?
Yep, correct. I walked into the Durham Commission. I walked into the DOJ in April of 2019 and explained everything that happened. 10 days later, they started the Durham Commission. And I was shown by the summer of 2020, they found the bribe. They found the numbered account in Azerbaijan with an $18 million deposit in it the week I told them they were going to find it. And they showed that to me.
Wow.
So they have her bribe.
And they haven't done anything.
Everything's corrupt. Everything's corrupt. Everything is corrupt in Washington. They've had that proof since summer of 2020.
That's insane.
Everything. They use everything. They use everything as leverage on other people and negotiate. Nothing's about finding the truth or prosecuting mischief. Everything. I'm sure that some guy got a federal judgeship out of being willing to sit on that information. He traded it. He's a federal judge somewhere now. That's how Washington works. It's so corrupt.
Well, you're also part of the whole Mueller investigation, right?
Well, I literally, my testimony, I went in and walked into the DOJ and walked them through everything I've just told you. They started the the Durham Commission. 10 days later, the Mueller Commission didn't want to talk to me. That's when I started realizing something must be, I'm in the center of all of this and nobody's talking to me. This is a cover-up. It's not an investigation.
That's crazy.
So, yeah.
In your relationship with Senator Hatch.
Well, that gets us to chapter 3.
Yep.
What all these people did not know was as follows. Because I had, since 1988, had this odd relationship where from time to time the government asked me, and like I say, it was the honor of my life. I never thought, this is like telling tales on the mafia. I never thought I would ever break that there's promises or that security clearance. But, desperate times call for desperate measures. Our country's hanging from a thread. If I stayed quiet too long. I should have been much clearer earlier. So what happened was in 2006 or so, the Senate Judiciary Committee got a hold on me. And it was Senator Hatch and Specter initially, but then other senators were involved, some of whom I've named in the book. Leahy, Kit Bond, Chuck Grassley. There was another Democrat. Specter was a Democrat. So it was Democrats and Republicans. And I used the name Crapo, and there was two senators who I wasn't sure who they were. One was a Democrat, one was a Republican. I later thought it was Crapo. Well, it was a Republican. I didn't catch his name when we met, but he was my height. He was like 6'4", 240, had a face a bit like a bird. And later, when I asked, somebody said, well, that sounds like Senator Crapo. I thought it was Crapo. It wasn't Crapo. It was somebody else. But the other senators will someday have to say who was that other Republican. So it was a mixed Republicans and Democrats that I had this very odd 12 to 18-month period where I was spying on the government for them. They told me that, Patrick, we are the ultimate protector of the Constitution because we investigate corruption. And so our power to investigate corruption transcends every power within government. And that was the word they repeatedly used with me, that their power transcended everything in government. They said, we can look into anything we want in this country. And no one gets to tell us, well, you don't have the right clearance. We're the Senate Judiciary Committee. And after about a year of having meetings at their direction, sort of schmoozing my way around the government and reporting back up to them, helping them locate corruption regarding Wall Street, they called me in and I had the strangest meeting of my life, where there were 7 senators around a table. An 8th senator's name was used, Ted Kennedy, but he wasn't in the room, and I didn't catch if they were saying he's part of this or he almost was, but I don't know. And they did this very strange thing. They said, we think that you're correct. There's some kind of, this was Chairman Specter, who was a Democrat turned Republican turned Democrat.
Yeah.
And a federal prosecutor, and very respected. His name's on a federal building down in Miami at this point. very respected. These were the Senate institutionalists, they call them, the people who transcend parties. And he said, they gave me this speech, and they said that we think you're right. There's some kind of corrupt force taking over the United States of America. And it's our job to stop it, but we can't stop it. And he went on, and he painted this very dismal picture until I remember finally saying, I know, this is what I've been saying.
Yeah.
How do you stop something like this? And he goes, we're going to stop it because we have you and you're going to stop it. And I was like, what? What do you mean? He says, we're going to be with the president tomorrow night. We're going to show him a letter, but you're going to spend the rest of your life. You need to know that there's this letter sitting in a safe for you in Washington, D.C. And he holds up this letter. It was a page and a half. And they held it. The senator held it. I couldn't even touch it. I had to put my hands behind my back and bend over and read it.
Yeah.
And the letter said, the first paragraph said something about the Senate Judiciary Committee was concerned about, I just remember this one phrasing, systemic corruption infiltrating the federal institutions of our nation's government. And the second paragraph opened with the sentence, the United States Senate Judiciary Committee requests that Patrick Byrne be afforded extraordinary latitude under the laws of the United States of America to do something like investigate and disrupt corruption. A very active sentence, not like to observe and report, but like, and they said, now, we may not be senators when you're done. We may not be alive when you're finished, but you need to live the rest of your life. We're counting on you. You're going to get to the bottom of this and stop this. And I asked one question. I thought for a few seconds. I said, no takebacks? And they all laughed and said, no takebacks, no takebacks. And I said, okay, well, gentlemen, I won't let you down. And they did tell me, Patrick, we get that you're a horse of a different color. We get that you're a bit cuckoo.
That's funny.
And this had not been done since World War II. And by the way, the senators, no one is denying this. The Senate, everyone there is in the motive. We will not confirm nor deny that this meeting happened, or that I was in this meeting. The senators have given a statement like that, but they said that this was last done in World War II. A citizen was asked. There was concern of German sympathizers in the government. And they had selected a Wall Street guy with a lot of contacts across government to become a German sympathizer and infiltrate and try to flush them out. So they basically asked me to get inside the deep state and flush out the deep state. So, and they said, no, you can't kill anyone. This is not a pardon. You can't kill anyone. But other than that, no prosecutor's ever going to touch you.
Right.
So that's chapter 3. So let me ask you a question. I went from 2016. There's chapter 1 was the setup of the Russian hoax, which I figured by November 2015 was all they were framing the Republican Party. Had nothing. Chapter 2 was we framed Hillary Clinton for a bribe. That was all 2015, 2016. My chapter 3 is a flashback to 2006. If that really happened, and there is such a letter in Washington D.C., would you agree that those agencies using me to create the Russian hoax, create a frame up on Hillary Clinton, and then threatening my life, does that all count as systemic corruption infiltrating the federal institutions of our nation's government in your mind?
Absolutely. Look, I'm with you 100%, and I think, probably at least half the country's with you as far as, there's a problem with the deep state, right? And there is absolute corruption. I call it institutional corruption, right? And institution. Look, when you look at corruption outside of the U.S., people show up with duffel bags and cash, and they bribe candidates, and they bribe, presidents, and et cetera. I've traveled throughout the whole world except for Africa, for 30 years, right? So I've been involved in a lot of shit myself. But what I tell people is, in the United States, it's not that it's not corrupt; it's institutionalized. That's a big difference. It's institutionalized corruption. They don't show up with a duffel bag with $3 million in cash. They do it in other ways, insider trading, a million different things. But my question, I guess,
you've been a good boy and taken part in things the right way. When you leave, there's $1 million a year job waiting for you at some K Street lobbyist. But if you've been a bad boy,
you got blackballed. Yep.
So you agree that that met the standards of the first sentence I mentioned, systemic infiltration.
Yeah, 100%.
That's good, because someday I'll probably be in front of 12 jurors, good and true, telling this story. Because
Fantastic.
I then decided to avail myself of extraordinary latitude under the laws of the United States of America. I decided that it was clearly up to me. It was like being a football player. You played at Churchill, I played at Whitman. You ever were on a kickoff return team?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Return. You ever have that feeling where, or not the return, when you're on the kickoff team, you kick off, you're running down, the guy who catches the ball on the opposing team runs and he breaks all these tackles, and you're the last guy. You ever been that last guy on the field?
Yeah, the last line of defense, right? I mean, that's it, you know? My concern on kickoff coverage or kickoff returns were always, I'm running as fast as I can. Am I going to get blindsided by somebody hitting me on the side, right? And smash. That was always my fear on those teams. But, hey, so this is important because I know you're limited on time, so you just tell me whenever you're good to go.
We want to get to chapter 4 before.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Hey, we got all day. If you want to go 3 hours, we'll go 3 hours. I have no issues. Do we know who's pulling the strings? And I know you want to save that for later, but I just want to make sure that before you leave, you got to answer that question for us, or everybody's going to be really pissed off and demanding you come back.
Well, I'm told this is the biggest secret in the U.S. government, that they're so afraid of getting out, and I'm putting it out. Because of those 3 chapters, there's a 4th chapter.
Yep.
They came to me in July of 2016 and said this has become the highest national priority. A Russian investigation has started. Comey and Brennan are jointly managing it.
Yeah.
We want to get back and romance Maria Butina again. And we're going to be handling you, and we leave our meetings with you, Patrick, and we're going to have a video conference to report directly to Comey and Brennan. And now they were very honorable men, and they said, listen, we know the United States never does things like this. We really don't. In all our careers, we've never heard of an assignment like this. So no one will think less of you if you say no, but if you're willing to, we want you to re-seduce Maria Butina, get inside her head, get her pillow talk and such.
Yep.
And I decided on the spot, I'm going to set my chain of command up in rape and murder. I'm going to put them in the position that they've got to sign off on rape and murder.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that in the book. That was amazing.
And to do that, what I had to do was, it took a couple months to warm things up with Maria again. And I sound like such a heel. She's a lovely woman. She's on her way. She may be president of Russia someday. She's a fabulous woman.
And you have a good relationship with her now, right? I mean, she did the prologue on your book, right?
On the movie. You got to see the movie.
Yeah, on the movie. That's right, the movie, yeah.
She appears in the movie.
Yep.
She appears in the movie. It shocked me. So I got back in touch. I warmed things up as one does. But when she came to visit me, I said, we're going to do this old-fashioned European courtship. And you're going to sleep in the guest room. And we're going to date for 6 months like this. You come out and visit me. And after 6 months, if you want to be with me, you leave that guy you're living with. You move in. We'll get married. And only then will we sleep together again. And she thought this was so romantic.
Yeah.
Well, I did that both out of respect to her, but also I wanted her mind to be completely clear and remember that whole second period had been I didn't lay a finger on her. And what I did instead was I then reported to my chain of command that after that weekend, when they asked if we were physical again, I said yeah, I shagged her all night. I'm back in the saddle, shagged her all night long. And I did that on purpose just to show that she didn't mean anything to me. Then they came back and there was a more detailed debriefing. And in that detailed debriefing, I pushed the boundary a little bit further. I said that I had introduced her to marijuana and gotten her totally wasted so I could question her. And I questioned her and could find no contradictions. And she was like in a stupor and answered me, and I could find no contradictions. And then basically, as long as she was in this stupor, I shagged her while she was in a stupor. Now, Ivan, you and I know what's the word for that.
Yeah, it's rape, date rape, right? So
That'd be rape. That'd be rape. And
Yep.
I put these agents in the position. I didn't come out and say it so easily for them to put it together. I said it kind of as I was packing up to leave. And I didn't. I had very carefully designed these different clues, but I knew that when they put all the dates and anecdotes I'd given them together, they would realize what I was saying was on the third night she was there, I'd gotten her wasted, questioned her, and then shagged her, which would be rape.
Right.
So they'd be going back and reporting that to Comey and Brennan.
And they didn't give a shit, right?
They didn't give a shit.
That's
They didn't give a
amazing.
shit. So I then offered to murder her. I said, and a couple meetings later, I said, and these agents from that point forward, they're very honorable men. They hated me from that point forward. They thought they were dealing with a rapist, and they hated me. I could see it in their eyes. All the warmth was gone. But they clearly been told, you don't bring this up. We don't give a good goddamn what Byrne did to Maria Butina. We need them to set up this Russian hoax. So I offered to murder her
Yeah.
at one point. And to their credit, the three feds jumped out of their chair. I said, they said, can you really, the folks back east want to know, can you really do this without falling in love? And I said, you tell the folks back east that, I said, Nietzsche said that philosophers don't really fall in love. It would be like seeing delicate little hands on a monster. You tell the folks back east, if they send word, I'll cut this chick's head off there in the Utah desert. No one's going to know a thing. 3 federal agents jumped out of their chairs, and I heard a weapon click out of a holster, but he put it back and he stood over me screaming at me, hey, Byrne, let's get this perfectly clear. We don't care what orders come from D.C. If you harm a hair in Maria Butina's head, we're going to kill you ourselves. You got me? And the 3, so they clearly had discussed it. They're honorable men. They were good men.
And that's a great point that you bring up. I noticed that in the book because I heard exactly that. That you heard the click. Somebody unholstering the just like you told it right now, and it goes to show that there are still good people there.
Absolutely.
And I've talked to so many people on the intel side, on several different agencies, and everybody says, look, there's good people, but there's a lot of shit in there. And a lot of garbage in there, especially at the top. Yep, you just said it.
It's people who come in and they capture it from the top down. So you want to know who's pulling the strings. That to me I knew there was no way that was going to slide. That Uncle Sam, that was going to be like a missile, that homing missile that went to the darkest depths, a homing torpedo that went to the darkest depths of the deep state.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the bowels of the deep state, some demon was going to have to make a decision. Do we want to, Byrne's gone crazy, we better stop this, to stop this fake Russian thing, stop these basically stop this slow coup we're working on.
Right.
We're creating a soft coup. Do we want to stop that? Or someone's going to have to sign off on the aggravated rape and possible murder of this girl they knew that they were setting up.
Yep.
Because I knew the agents were going to say, hey, we're out. We didn't sign up for this. And I found out the same meeting that I found out in summer of 2020 that Hillary Clinton did it. So I walked into the DOJ and explained all of this in 2019. And they told me, hey, Byrne, Maria was in jail at that time. They said, Byrne, if Maria doesn't corroborate your story, you're in a bunch of trouble. I said, I have no worries at all. And they went and asked Maria, and Maria told them, no, Patrick never laid that whole first period we dated, very physical. Second period we dated, he never laid a finger on me. Yep. I didn't understand it. He flew me around. He treated me like a queen. I never laid a finger. I never met a guy like that. That's because I needed to create that perfect memory so I could set them up.
Yeah.
So,
but if you go back a little bit before, to the Mueller investigation, you went to the Hill. You were I think you were in New York, I think, and you decided that you wanted to go and just lay it out, right? You said I either walk downstairs and go to Fox, or go talk to somebody, and decided to go talk to Radcliffe, right, in his group. And then from there were some subpoenas, and they never happened. And you said, if they arrest her or they do something to her, that all the shit that I'm saying is real. And it happened. I think you went on a Thursday, and they got her on a Tuesday or something, right? That's an important piece.
I walked in and told them all this, and I said, look, this all sounds crazy, but if I'm right, what you're going to see happen is they're going to arrest this redheaded Russian grad student at the American University here, and they're going to hold her up like, oh, we discovered this Russian spy. If that happens, I promise it's a hoax. They knew about her the day she landed in America from me. They had me manipulating. They had me creating some of these meetings for her. They knew about all these meetings often before they happened. It's all a big hoax. And I left. And 4 or 5 days later, the FBI stepped in and arrested Maria Butina. So
Amazing.
Radcliffe knew I was telling the truth. Radcliffe knew I was telling the truth. But Congress, you can't believe how weak, how nobody has any guts to do anything. The deep state's everywhere. So I did find out in late 2020 or summer 2020 who signed off. I found out that Hillary did accept the bribe from Azerbaijan, and the rape and murder of Maria Butina was signed off on by Barack Hussein Obama.
Wow.
Yeah. There was
Wow.
the same October 2016, the same month that Trump got in so much trouble for his vulgar comments
Yeah.
about grab, which same month that happened, these 3 federal agents objected and said, Burns gone crazy. We're not gonna do this anymore. He's gonna kill this girl or something.
Right.
And President Obama signed a presidential finding taking responsibility, understanding that they thought I'd committed aggravated rape and murder this girl, and he put his signature on a presidential finding saying, ignore that, go forward with this mission. It was too important to set up this whole fake Russian scandal. So that is, I'm told, the biggest secret in the U.S. government that they worry about. When this finally comes out to history, how are we going to spin it, blah, blah, blah. Well, spin that. The thing that's beautiful about it is you can't spin rape and murder.
Yeah.
You can't spin, they spin everything else, but you can't spin rape and murder. Barack Obama signed off the same month Trump got in so much trouble for some lewd comments.
Yeah.
Barack Obama signed off on the rape and murder of a girl he knew was innocent so that we could continue setting up a coup. It's the greatest thing in history. And Maria Butina, well, she appears in the movie, and she, first thing, when they made the movie, General Flynn and the people making the movie called her, and she confirmed, look, Patrick was the most incredible gentleman. I treated her like she was a Romanov princess because I needed her to remember for this entire period, I treated her like this princess. So later, when people came and said that she'd be able to say, no, Patrick didn't lay a finger on me.
I'm surprised that she talks to you because you set her up, right?
Yeah, she spent 18 months in a box because of me. We don't really talk. I don't think we've spoken since she left. It was once a month. We were maybe telegramming each other. I did care about her enough,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure she went back to Russia and good things happened to her and she wasn't, throwing prison stuff. She became a senator.
Yep.
She's a very important and well-known figure in Russia. I think she's being groomed to be president, frankly.
Probably.
And she's a wonderful woman. She's a real intellectual. And but I exposed the deep state. If you want to get to the bottom of it, what I did this thinking, whoever signs off on this, that's the demon at the depths of the deep state. Well, it turned out to be Barack Obama.
And and it's pretty obvious that he's controlling things today, right? Because obviously Biden doesn't control when he goes to the bathroom.
Well, he's the puppet master behind Biden through a woman named Susan Rice, although that lasted the first 3 years of the administration.
Yep.
Then Susan Rice quit. But Obama's not in charge. He has puppet masters behind her.
And that's what I was going to go to. So who's behind him, right? That's what everybody wants to really know is who's really behind, Obama and everybody else. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Good, Laura. I'm doing an interview. May I call you back? Thank you.
Hey, it's a podcast, man. It doesn't get more authentic than this, right? So next time we got to do it with a good scotch or a bourbon and a cigar, man.
Well, I'm in a Muslim country, so I actually do have a cigar I could smoke. But
yep. I figure if Elon Musk and Joe Rogan can smoke a doobie, I can have a cigarette and, my guests can have a cigar and a drink and we should be fine, right? It doesn't get more authentic than that, but,
I'm not above an occasional doobie, but I don't do it when I'm in the Muslim world.
There you go. But crazy Can Patrick can't hear me. I can hear me. Are we back? Patrick? No, he can't hear me.
He can.
Are we there? He can hear me now. Okay. He just hung up. Okay, that's too bad. We just lost him. Let's see if we can get him back in.
Okay.
Let's see what happens here. The audio dropped on my end and then on his end.
No, they can also turn off one thing.
That's a shame. That conversation was going fantastic. I mean, he was exposing the deep state. You guys have to read his 2 books, and the docuseries, The Enemy Within. It is absolutely fascinating, everything he's been talking about. Just absolutely crazy. Obama signed off on crimes. Obama was a puppet master behind the Russian hoax. We all knew that. We've all been talking about it. Too bad he didn't get a chance to answer if he knew anything about the Office of Net Assessment. That seems to be a name that has come up a while. Senator Grassley mentioned it during the whole Russian investigation. Peter Strzok from the FBI counterintelligence was going into DOD and into the Office of Net Assessment and doing something there. So we don't know what that was all about. But hey, I guess hopefully we can get Patrick back at a later date. It doesn't look like he's going to be coming back today because I know he had a hard stop at the 30-minute mark. So, we're going to try and get him back on. In the meantime, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. We did have some technical glitches, but it happens. And we'll see what happens, Let's see what happens. Yeah, no, I've already texted him. I don't know if he's going to come back. But anyways, guys, that's it for today. Too bad we had to drop and it dropped on a technical challenge. But we're 5 days away from the election. We're going to win this thing. We're leading in all the polls. Make sure you get out and vote. Vote early. Offer friends, family, neighbors. Offer them rides. Get them out to the polls. And we'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be tomorrow with the great Jim Dornan, a good friend of mine. He is the epitome of the D.C. establishment. So we're going to hear his take on how things are going and how bad and how hard all the establishment Republicans are crying that Donald Trump is going to win. So we'll see you tomorrow, guys. And don't forget to follow us on all the social media platforms, and especially on the podcast, right? So if you want to watch us, I don't know if you want to watch me. I'm not the prettiest sight, but you can watch us on Rumble. And otherwise, look, we're on Pandora, we're on Stitcher, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on iHeartMedia, we're on Amazon Music, and we're on Audible. So no excuses. Go find us, download it, set it up, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much.
My name is Patrick Byrne, domestic extremist threat number 1. Or not. Perhaps I'm just somebody who's willing to say the emperor has no clothes. You can decide for yourself.
Patrick Byrne.
They're following everything that you've been working on.
Yes, sir. Understood.
You may know of me as the CEO of this $2 billion e-commerce company, but really, I have this other life.
You have an unusual relationship with the United States government?
Sir, why are you bringing this up?
The FBI needed me to set up a bribe.
We can't have agents running around creating crimes.
It would violate too many rules for us to do it, but if you're willing to go do it, we'll look the other way.
Hello, my name is Maria Putina.
Then I would make it happen. Instead of being happy, they say,
Just let it play, all right?
"What?"
Let it play?
Now, I know this may look like the Deep Throat scene from All the President's Men, but where do you think that stuff comes from? These things happen.
What you think you know.
I was encouraged to have a relationship,
What you think you are.
and as it heated up,
I'm going to meet the Trumps.
I was starting to realize the feds were using Maria to smudge up the Republican Party, and they were using me to use Maria. And this truth is going to be so explosive.
Erase every moment from your memory.
If you do this long enough, you begin to feel like an enemy of your own country.
They're going to arrest this Russian grad student so they could say, no, there is an actual Russian at the center of our Russian collusion drama. A civilization all begins with the rule of law. And once that gets corrupted, it's like my worst fears had just been realized. I don't know, maybe I'm just being sensitive.